A few weeks ago, I said this. The world isn't perfect. I'm not perfect. Records aren't perfect. I am so far from perfect, and I actually want to lean into that today. I am going to troll myself. Over the course of the last 200 videos, has it really been 200? That's crazy. But anyway, over the course of this channel, I have said some really cringeworthy statements. So I thought today would be fun to take a look at a few. I watch a lot of reviews, and I find them helpful, especially when I am, going to look at a new accessory or maybe a new cleaning method or a new piece of gear, and I actually enjoy doing reviews myself. The thing is, when it comes to describing a sound, say in a review, there's really only so much that you can say about a sound. So you could make things up, but you could also use terms that other folks use. And one of my fallbacks that I use more than I care to admit is the term warm. Warm. I do think that the tube box was a little bit warmer. Why mullered? Well, really because of warmth and smoothness. But I did find the turntable tonally warm. With triode mode, you get that, that soft warmth. And I would say maybe stop saying that. Now, what does it really mean to say, a cartridge sounds warm or that an amp brings warmth to the table? If I'm going to use the term warm, which I probably should start to not rely on so much, if I'm going to use the term warm, I should explain what that means. If I tell you a particular record mat brings or adds a bit of warmth, which is really bullshit, and I bet I've even said that, what do I mean by warm? It's a term that I've obviously used as a crutch over the years. Now, I talked about this in my newsletter recently. I used to describe the term warm as something that's not overly bright, but that's not the case. Warmth doesn't mean the absence of treble. It's really just adding character or color to the music or color to the sound. A better term would probably be non-fatiguing. Now, will I keep using the term? Probably. I just won't use it as much. And when I do, I'll try to explain what it is I mean by a particular sound being warm. I'll add more to it than just saying, hey, this sounds warm. So how about another one? If I were to get up, switch the selector on my amp to T, and enable the tone controls, well, who would ever know? Well, I would. And it would bother me. That's the grumpy audiophile angel on my shoulder yanking on my ear to get my attention. I hate that I said this. Absolutely not. Tone controls are not the work of the devil. I did another video not too long after that one where I did a complete 180 on my thoughts and feelings about tone controls. But that video is still out there. I don't usually take videos down. I think I've only done it once or twice, and that was because of an extremely low-performing video or a bad quality one. And I actually have some other bad quality ones, especially my early ones. Don't even watch those, please. But anyway, that video about tone controls being the work of the devil is still out there. And I sometimes think about removing it because somebody will see that and either think, what a jerk, or they'll see it and think, hey, he says I shouldn't use tone controls, so maybe they're a bad thing after all. It's like that argument, and I've even used it, where they say tone controls get in the way of what the artist intended. Well, who knows what the artist intended? Sometimes the artist doesn't even know what they intended. They're just there to play the music, and then it gets mixed down, and they might not even know what the mix sounds like until they hear it for themselves. And I talked about this recently when I was talking about Black Sabbath's Born Again. Now, I'll try to make this the last time I bring that album up, but that's an album where the resulting sound was nothing like what the band intended. Born Again is one of those albums that until it's finally remixed and remastered, it needs a healthy mix of tone controls to clean it up. We all have different rooms, and those rooms have different objects in them, like couches or bookshelves or whatever the case may be, and we have different equipment. So what sounds overly bright to me might not to you, and there's nothing wrong with using tone controls to fix that if you want to. If you have an amplifier or a pair of active speakers that has tone controls in it and you want to tame the treble or enhance the bass, by all means do it. And if somebody blathers on like this, well, that sound is how the artist intended. Ignore them. Do what thou wilt, as Aleister Crowley said. And here's one, since we're on the subject of tone controls, I actually took heat from a guy who has a really good channel out there, but he took, I would say, a little bit of umbrage at what I had to say here.
I love to swap tubes out and swap them out for a different set of tubes, and that tone's going to change. And that's another form of tone control.
Okay, so yes, I have said in the past that tube rolling is a form of tone control. And in casual conversation, I'll still say that. But I do understand why he called me out on it. Changing tubes can bring a lot of things, like mullet KT88s, for example. Sometimes I find those muddy. And there are other tubes that I find a little bit thin or a little bit bright. Now, I'm not going to defend likening them to tone controls because they aren't. What I should have said is they alter the sounds. They change the presentation. A PsVane Summit might handle the low end better than, say, a JJ tube. My Tung-Sol KT170s or even the 150s might add a bit more dynamics or even airiness. I don't know, but they do change the tonal character of the sound. Now, there's a term, tonal character. I'm going to start using that. I actually like that term. Now, this next one is a bit controversial. Should you clean your vinyl records using isopropyl alcohol? Drum roll, please. No. Now, that's another one that I've changed my mind on. And my take on it back then wasn't even my take. It was one that I've read and heard over and over, like a lot of people have. And it was based on claims that weren't tested and still really haven't been tested. It's really not true. I even doused a record in isopropyl for 30 days as a test, and it didn't kill the record. It wasn't even scientific. It was just something that I thought would be fun to do, given the claims that are out there that isopropyl is dangerous when it comes to cleaning records. The weird thing is, there were a couple of people that thought I was seriously advocating for dousing a record or giving a record an isopropyl bath. No, not at all. They either didn't watch the video or they completely missed the point. So if you're one of those folks, please do not give your record an isopropyl bath. I'm not saying that it's going to kill your record, but I'm not saying it's not either. That was just a 30-day fun test. Who knows what long-term effects will be? If you are going to use isopropyl, dilute it. There's a great paper out there by Neil Anton that touches on it, and the London Jazz Collector also uses it. Now, I've stopped using isopropyl in my cleaning solution, and it has nothing to do with me thinking that there's something wrong with it. I just found something I like better. So I now use that instead of isopropyl. But again, if you do use it, just dilute it. You don't want to regret it later. And speaking about regret, I once said this.
Today, I'm going to talk about reissues and why I can no longer buy them.
Yes, I said that, and I was...
Look, I know what I told you to do, but when I told you to do that, I was...
Yeah, I was wrong. I was coming from a place at the time where I would buy a reissue and compare it to, say, my original pressing of a record and find that there really wasn't much difference. And in some cases, my OG was superior to the reissue. I also found that there were some reissues that had issues quality control-wise. So I made the blanket statement that I was done with reissues and I was just going to chase original pressings or close to original pressings. Yeah, I've since changed my mind on that too. Guess what I've been buying a lot lately? Blue Note reissues of some jazz classics. I also bought this, the Legacy reissue of Kind of Blue by Miles Davis. Absolutely great record. So if I was done buying reissues, that would mean that I would have to chase down the original pressings. And as you well know, some of those are an arm and a leg. Now, I've been buying a lot of reissues lately and replacing some of my older copies, like these Doors reissues from Rhino, or this Kenny Burrell reissue of Midnight Blue. You know, if you ever see Kevin Gray's name attached to a reissue, 99% of the time, you're going to be in heaven. The thing is, this is a journey, and I love the journey. I learn something new every day. And I also, the more I learn, sometimes I look back on beliefs or opinions I've held, and I'll tweak them or change them or completely alter them. There's nothing wrong with that. That means you're growing. That means you're growing as a person, and you're also growing as someone who enjoys listening to music and how they like to listen to music. Now, everything you've seen today won't be the last cringy statements I make, and I'm sure I'll make mistakes along the way. And when I do, and I learn otherwise, I'll be sure to talk about it. And I'm also sure, I have no doubt, that when I make a cringy statement or make a mistake, there'll be somebody out there who will call me out on it, and that's completely okay too. And so until then, thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this video and the channel, please like and subscribe. It does help the channel. I also mentioned the newsletter. I have a weekly newsletter, comes out on Saturdays. It's free to join. So I'll put a link in the description for that if you're interested. Again, thank you for watching. And until next time, take care of yourself and enjoy your records, and I'll see you soon.